I need
This weekend? Thanks, down here, Kel. There we can see sis. Kelly, you don't want to sit next to your sister. See her. Do you see her own system or do you do it back there?
That light's on, but I still have to do the system on.
Go ahead and turn it on so we can see if Logan's on.
Hey, Daniel, can you guys hear me?
Now we do. We just turned on the system. So you hear us okay?
Yep, I'm on.
Perfect. You can move your chair back. You can move it if he wants to sit with you. You can move back if you want to sit next to it. You don't have to be sitting where that would. You get your 5-minute speech ready.
Yeah, anyone in the front row has to give a speech. Okay.
No, I did. I'll call the December 5th City Council meeting to order. Call the roll.
Abby Hansen. John Hawkins,
Yeah.
Megan McFarland,
Here.
Matt McKinney,
Here.
Logan Welch,
Here.
Call for a motion to approve the agenda.
So move. Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Item 1, petitions, communications and requests. This is the time of the meeting that a citizen may address the council on a matter not on the agenda. No more than 5 minutes per person, except in case of emergency. The city council will not take any action at this meeting, but may ask city staff to research the matter, have the matter placed on the agenda for a future meeting. Anyone have anything? Okay. Item 2 is minutes, claims, reports and licenses. The following items have been deemed non-controversial routine actions to be approved by the council in a single motion. If a council member or a member of the audience wishing to have an item removed from this list, will be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. I have item A as minutes for November 21st and November 28th with additional names added. B is a resolution on payroll for period ending November 19 and paid on November 25th. C is a resolution on bills, approved fund list. D is recommend approval for issuance of beer liquor licenses by the Iowa Department of Commerce for the following. Renewal of a Class B retail alcohol license, Sunday sales now included in the license. IV Incorporated, Webster City Fast and Fresh Express at 819 2nd Street. Renewal of Class B retail alcohol license. Quick Trip Incorporated at or Quick Star at 505 Fairmeadow.
Move to approve it collectively. Second.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Item 3, general agenda. We have the annual presentation by YSS on services provided by Hamilton County. Bambi. Evening.
Good evening. All right. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. My name is Bambi Schrader, and I am representing YSS of Hamilton County. I've actually been with YSS out of the Ames office for 33 years. So I've worked quite a long time with YSS, so I know it pretty well. But for those of you guys that don't know the history of YSS, we started in 1976 as a nonprofit, 1970 as a nonprofit agency, and in 1976 became a nonprofit C class agency. In 1985, we opened the Webster City office. Many of you guys remember it used to be right here on the corner of 2nd Street, and then more recently we moved to our new location. In 2021, YSS celebrated our 45th anniversary of being a nonprofit agency. And so we're very proud of where we've come, where we're going. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about where we've gone so far. YSS of Hamilton County, I believe, is an integral part of Webster City. We receive funding from you guys, which we're very appreciative of. And I just wanted to give you a few statistics that, and you guys have this document in front of you. In the last year, we've taken in 101 intake sessions just in this last year. And we provided services to 137 behavioral and therapy councils clients that are Webster City residents. So that's a quite significant amount of the people we're serving at YSS of Hamilton County are residents here in Webster City. Some services available we have are behavioral health and skill services. These would be things like parenting skills, anger management, learning how to process emotions in healthy ways, and helping families to get together so that they don't go into out-of-home placement. As I mentioned, I've been with YSS for a long time. 27 years of those was with foster care and adoption. And that's one of the things we really want to see not happen, is where kids have to be removed from their home situations. And hopefully through behavioral health and skills, we avoid that situation. We also provide counseling, therapy, and treatment. And this is based on a medical model of behavior and family systems and neurological development, because we all know that the development of the brain is not necessarily based on chronic age. So we need to make sure that we're basing the therapy on the child and following that model. Care is matched to the needs of the individual or with the family, with a commitment to provide the right treatment at the right intensity, at the right time, and in the right setting. We also have staff that specialize in pediatrics and behavioral health. We have 2 licensed clinicians who are prepared to effectively diagnose, successfully treat, and support the families dealing with mental health issues and addictions and to have a safer community setting. Individual, family, and counseling helps youth and their families deal with problems related to school, related to family, communication, depression, running away, involvement with the law, issues concerning alcohol and drugs, physical and sexual abuse, and conflict with peers. Another service we have provided are psychiatric and medication management services. There's a shortage across our state and across our nation for mental health services. And so YSS offers telehealth video conferencing, psychiatric and medical management services. So it's a lot more available to families and to individuals. We also offer in-school services. For the past 4 years, we provided in-school behavioral health treatment to youth in Webster City schools. And with the addition of the 2 new licensed clinicians, we hope to expand these services in the next year. We have an addiction treatment services, certified alcohol and drug counselors, and licensed mental health clinicians who provide assessments and outpatient treatments to adolescents and adults with substance abuse issues. We also have what's called aftercare services. These serve youth ages 17 to 23 who have aged out of the foster care system. Aftercare assists youth in finding affordable housing, enrolling in college, searching employment, setting up their own households, budgeting, and other necessary skills for them to become independent, successful adults. And then we, again, as I mentioned, we have the telehealth services. That's both for medication management and counseling. Something that's we like to definitely talk about is where we're going from here. We have the Ember Youth Recovery Campus coming. We broke ground in Cambridge, Iowa. This is going to be located on 50 acres of Iowa prairie and woods, and it's going to provide crisis stabilization, energy shelter, and residential addiction treatment for youth. We had a $10 million investment from a mental health region, CICS, and a Madrid of public and private donations. We've raised more than $20 million or a $25 million goal. And there's a website if you'd like to look more into it. Lastly, what I wanted to do is just read you, this is called Courtney's story, and this is from one youth that was served by the YSS counseling and how she expresses that it really helped her. It's called Courtney's story. Raised in a family of drug dealers, Courtney became pregnant at 16. Her partner at the time taught her to sell marijuana and methamphetamine. Courtney began to sell and use drugs, once getting clean, only then to relapse. It wasn't until she was sitting in jail facing 5 felony drug charges that she realized she had no choice but to get sober. Determined to not be a statistic, Courtney sought help from the counseling. At age 33, she went back to school for her bachelor's degree and started working in the human services field. Now at 43, a single mom of 5 children, she recently completed her master's degree in mental health counseling. Though this is enough trauma for several lifetimes, Courtney was about to face her biggest crisis yet. This time she had YSS by her side. In 2020, Courtney enrolled her youngest daughter in counseling at YSS after discovering she had been sexually molested by her father. Her 1-year-old nephew passed away unexpectedly, and her oldest son, a type 1 diabetic, was admitted to the ICU 3 times and nearly died. Courtney knew she needed help. In February, she began counseling at YSS of Hamilton County. She says, and I quote, "If it wasn't for the mental health services at YSS, I don't know that my family would be okay." Courtney says, "Without this help, I would be a statistic, a poor single mom, probably still on drugs or in prison. I probably would have lost my children, but I didn't. Because I continue to reach out and ask for help, I rely on the staff at YSS continuing to help us, and without fail, they have."
Thank you.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Item B is an update on the 719 Des Moines Street regarding unsafe building notice.
Hey, Sean here. This was an item that council deferred to this council meeting. We previously discussed the unsafe building notice that was given to Sean Anderson for his building at Morning Glory at 718 Des Moines Street. And that was based off of 2 engineers reports, both one done for the property at 721 Des Moines. That was done by JEO Consulting Group. Another engineering report done by Sean's insurance, and that was the KP report. The reports were done roughly October 18th and then November 10th, if I'm not mistaken, or November 16th, I believe. And so based on the information and the JEO report and the KP reports, a notice of unsafe building was issued for Morning Glory. Some of the key findings in that were just that the building was susceptible to further damage. They share a common wall with joists built into that common wall. And as the 721 Des Moines Street building continues to deteriorate, the impact or effect it can have on Sean's building, in addition to other deterioration that both reports noted on the interior of Sean's building, both on the south wall, particularly on the inside, closer to the roof line, as well as the basement foundation. And then Sean's insurance's engineer noted a bowing on the second floor by the bay window that extends up to the parapet. And so we have not received any additional information from Sean. I do know I heard from his insurance agent, Craig Foster, who stated that the insurance engineer KPE had reviewed the reports and had indicated that the building, presuming that at the time of the that it was inspected in October, just said from what he can tell, this is what the engineer can tell from the information. At this point, there's no damage to the insured building. And as to why is the insured's responsibility to do the bracing, et cetera, as Sean's building was not the one that collapsed, and that the insured should document the state of the building before the demolition, and after, wherever the demo contractor is should not just be taking a wrecking ball. to it and they should deconstruct the building. He said it appears that they are trying to put liability on the insured or Sean in this case. And so I do know that I believe the chamber has been working with Sean and had worked with Schlofeld Engineering to also review the reports and to work with Sean on the matter, but I haven't received any detailed information. The motion at the last council meeting was to not put the unsafe building signs as required per our city code. And the council would review the matter at the next meeting, just today. So
This Sean hasn't come back to you with
no,
anything.
Sean hasn't.
Did you guys want to say anything at all?
I'm just waiting for the demo plan so we can start.
Okay,
That's
well,
Mhm.
I mean, I think that we need to put the signs up because we haven't had any more information.
Yeah, the signs and the reason why this came to council is because Sean appealed the unsafe building notice. And so the only matter that the council can determine is whether or not you uphold the unsafe building notice and proceed with the erecting or placing of the unsafe building signs, as was discussed at the last meeting.
Well, it's unfortunate that we didn't get more information. It sounds like the insurance company and maybe the structural engineer really didn't answer the question we were looking for. They were talking more about the liability of one, but the one building versus the other, which really doesn't give us any more information about whether it's truly an unsafe building or not. I guess I'd have to defer to the city to just go ahead and post the notices, and we don't have any more information. We have the one report that says it is unsafe, and until we know more, I think we have to proceed that way. That's my opinion.
I agree. How long will the unsafe building notice be up? Like the other building comes down, and then how long will that stay up, or will it have to be reassessed at that time, or?
It would likely have to be reassessed at that time. More than likely, Sean would hopefully Wayne Schlofeld, if he is working with them, will have some report by that point that we can review and assess. And so we are working with Shuck Brinson, who's a structural engineering firm that has worked with the city in the past and on both city projects as well as on matters like this. So once the demo permit is finalized and issued, then at that point, based on the circumstances and what the issues that are visible after the deconstruction of the building, then be reassessed.
Are they going to get their building permit? I mean, their demolition permit this week?
More likely this week. I know.
How soon do you guys need it?
And I know you guys had spoken with Sean about your means and methods, and I don't know if you guys had come to an agreement on. I know he indicated trying to do it for a Sunday. I don't know what.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you look at some of the pictures in the center of the building, the vinyl, the roofing is bulged out. We need to pull that off, check it. And we talked to him as far as if there is a problem there, best thing for that is steel. Steel is your friend on holding that building up. And we told him it would have to be sandwiched in there. He's gonna have to have some other columns in there. Steel's your best friend to hold a building up. He understood that and he didn't have no problem with that. We took our means and methods down there, told him what we need to look for as soon as we pull that vinyl roofing up. And we'll have to go from it. There's some other pictures that show the crack in the front of that building. We've seen it. It needed to get addressed as soon as we pull that roofing up, and we worked out agreement with him as far as the lateral support that the engineer wants to hold it there till either get some more steel there to pull everything together. Some iron and bolts would help that building out a lot. Sean's building, that is.
Yeah.
The other building, we ain't gonna go there and repair it.
Yeah.
We probably
So
need a motion.
We need a motion to. Oh, Logan, did you? Did you need?
Yeah, I wanted to just make a couple comments so you guys can hear me. I still stand behind, feeling that we need to look at the wall from all directions after the other building's down, and that the fallen building is itself the danger to the community, not necessarily Sean's. I do agree with Matt's comments, though we don't have any more new information per se to kind of give us direction. Therefore, I will defer to the city, and I will go along with. I believe that we have a consensus here to do so. But again, I just want to reiterate. I think that the pylons and the barricades and the a fallen building is fine enough. But if this is something that would protect us, I of course would not get in its way.
I've moved to posting the notices that we deferred at the last meeting.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item C is a third reading of an ordinance amending Code of Ordinances of the City of Webster City, Iowa by amending Chapter 48 pertaining to sewer rental rates. I believe you guys would like to say something before we.
As we can go.
Met with, over here, sorry.
Please.
Sarah.
Yeah.
As we met with you last week and the city manager, Daniel, and media as well. This has been new news to us that we were this far along, and we've received information about that. And as a business, a large industrial user here in Webster City, we do have concerns about this city and our ability to take on a project with $78 million of loan debt, not just for ourselves, but for the residents of Webster City, and such a huge commitment. And we're asking that you hold off on approving the third reading, and have a little more time to evaluate, are there other options that may be less than the $78 million proposal that you've gotten from the design firm? And just to be fiscally responsible for this community, that's a huge ontaking. And, I know we're looking at specifically here a 25% increase in all of our rates. And already, as we look at Webster City's sewer rental rates versus other communities, we're higher than a lot of other communities to start with. So I think what I'm asking is that we put on the pause button, we take a look at things and see, is there another way to approach this that might be a little bit more fiscally responsible for the community than taking on these kinds of increases for a $78 million project. That's all I have to say.
Bill Volge, representing Webster City Custom Meats. I'm not going to get into any great detail. We talked with you the other day, which we appreciated your time meeting with us and the Korleskis in regards to this. And we as well are concerned about not just our own well-being, but the well-being of the community, being as we live here. Okay. And I guess the one thing that I really want all five of you, I guess there's four of you tonight, but all five of you to think about is your fiduciaries of our money. And so as you spend that, we expect you to spend it wisely. I think you're doing a lot of homework. Don't misunderstand us. To Pam's point, are there some stones unturned? Have you talked I talked to BD today? Have we talked to Iowa State? Have we talked to Cirrus? There might be some other possibilities of some things that maybe we could interject into this and hold this cost down, because it does seem rather exorbitant. And I know we talk about tapping the brakes 5 or 6 years back. And if you look at the history of this, we were talking about a $20 million project that's evolved to 50 and 60 and now close to 80. You know, and it's like, it's very concerning. And some of the information I got, I just perused today because I didn't have a lot of time, but I noticed West Union. And this is in 2019, and I don't know the magnitude of their wastewater project, but they're a town of 2,500 people, and it was $7.5 million. So if we multiply that, that would be 22 and a half. So let's say we give a little more cushion, it's 30, but we're talking close to 80. We're not saying that you're not doing your homework, but we're saying maybe there's some other avenues to at least entertain. If you can't put this thing off due to your financing objectives, I understand there's some things, but I think it's fair for us to understand that if something else better comes along and we can put that into the system before the bids are let, that should be acceptable. Is that a fair statement?
I believe so.
And how much time would that give us?
What do you mean time?
How much time would we have to
We don't have a lot
for all of us to
pump the brakes on this thing because
investigate?
we don't have a lot of time left to do that because in 2 years, we have to have the plant built according to the.
I understand.
And,
So, but Beatty had said before the bids are let, we still have some time to entertain doing something different. Am I misunderstanding that?
No, I mean,
Okay.
there's time to ask questions.
Okay, there's time to. If the treatment process, if there's going to be major changes to the design, to the treatment process, it will likely reset the upfront permitting process with the DNR.
Okay.
So the facility plan that the council adopted in September had been submitted in September, and DNR is reviewing that right now. The facility plan that they review will take about 6, 7, maybe 8 months, depending. They have, looking at the DNR's portal for wastewater treatment plant projects that are coming online. They have several, and so one of the concerns is whether or not they're going to have the time to review that and whether that's going to delay it. So just on changing the treatment system alone, you're resetting a 6 to 8 month window, possibly.
So John, you had indicated to me that if we were to pursue that avenue, that it could result in fines from the DNR.
If we're not built by.
Okay, so if we found out what kind of money we're talking about for the fines,
No, I don't believe so.
I mean, would that be a fair question? Maybe we back it up, we get the fines and we're still money ahead.
I can tell you what, and pull it up. I can tell you what the enforcement actions have been for cities. And per the Iowa code, some of these penalties are on a per day basis. So the department on their website, they maintain a list of enforcement actions and you can drill down. Well, at least in this case, I drilled down to cities. So this goes back to 2017. And mind you, part of the reason why we're moving forward with the plant was because the nutrient reduction strategy that the state had adopted came online in 2013. Any new permit for a wastewater treatment plant is done every 5 years. So any permit that is renewed after that strategy was adopted is now subject to the new treatment regulations and standards. So, and that's pushed every wastewater treatment plant to have to address and identify if their plant can assess and properly treat for the nutrient reduction strategy and meet the new requirements that the state is imposing. And if not, develop a schedule to implement the capital improvements to be able to meet that treatment requirement. And so, this list is in chronological order. We're going backwards, but the most recent one was the City of Altoona, comply with all conditions of a national pollutant discharge limitation permit, and pay a $4,000 administrative penalty. Now, when you drill down to the actual enforcement findings and actions, some of these penalties are on a per day basis. There are some communities that I know are being threatened and some that are being assessed. Now, ultimately, if they end up paying that, it's going to go to the DNR. But, these are all the communities that are dealing with wastewater treatment facility improvements that have not complied with the requirements of the DNR to begin assessing and move forward with the schedule to comply and construct new facilities that meet the new requirements.
Okay, a couple other things. Where are we out of the limit? As far as limits, where are we out of control? What are the problem issues on an ongoing basis?
I don't know specifically on an ongoing basis. One of the key drivers is both capacity, the lack of capacity. We're at capacity with the existing plant, as well as the inability for the existing plant to meet the nutrient reduction strategy.
Yeah.
Specifically, what can it not treat?
Well, one of the specifics of nutrient reduction strategy is being able to treat, the big ones are nitrogen and phosphorus is one of the big drivers behind that. But I don't know the full nutrient reduction strategy and what's under that umbrella. So
nitrogen and phosphorus, where do you think most of that's coming from?
I couldn't tell you.
But, I mean, we have a plant that was built in 1939.
I'm sorry?
The plant was built in 1939.
Yeah. No, that's not the question, John.
Well, but it is a big piece of this. Is it built in 1939 and everybody's expecting this thing will last 100?
We're not saying we shouldn't build a new plant. We're saying
Well, yeah.
maybe
Right.
no, maybe we're saying it can be built more efficiently and not cost as much money. This is going to be a big hit. You just take those simple.
We know.
You just take those simple rates for people on a fixed income. You're going to be about $70 a month up over that period of time. Doesn't sound like a lot. Some people, to other people, it's a lot.
It is a lot.
And I kind of look at this as it's kind of a two-piece issue. Even if I think we're all open to, if we find a way to build this plant for 35 million, great. 25% isn't going to cover that. So we've got to begin to collect the money now in order to be able to be where we need to be and not risk possible inability to fund it because we haven't proceeded forward with showing we can pay for it. So I hear what you're saying, and I understand the concern about the cost of the plant, but this piece is reading and raising the rates to be able to pay for any plant. It doesn't matter what it is, we're going to need this 25.
So is it fair to say then, if in the next few months, if there's a better way to build the better mousetrap, that we're not locked into a $78 million project?
I think anyone would say if we have something presented that is going to.
There's no incentive, nothing against an engineer, but there's no incentive against engineers or architects to build down.
Right. They've been looking at this project for 4 to 6 years. This has been evaluated. Daniel and his team can better talk about what all they looked at. But we, at the end of the day, it's not been they put this together in a year. We've been talking about this for 4 to 6 years. So it's not that in my opinion, they wouldn't have looked at all those options. I'm not an engineer and I'm not an expert in wastewater, so I can't say that there isn't another alternative.
Well, neither are we. And one of that, which poses a question, if we were to, I'm going to use Mary Ann's example because we've talked about this. If the two of us were to pull out and do our own thing, and that would not be meant in a threatening way, which I told you at the meeting the other day, would that perhaps be a prudent thing to do? And if so, how much would affect the cost of the project?
Great.
I've heard generically 10%, but it's 10% of what?
He's got a bigger one.
Yeah, Greg sent estimated, and this is a very rough estimate.
I'm sorry?
Greg sent from Bolton and Mink estimated that if Mary Ann's and Custom Meats were to build their own wastewater treatment plant and not be connected to our system and not discharge into the city system, it would save approximately 5 to 6% of the construction costs, which is about $4 to $5 million.
5 to 6% of the construction. Okay, that's what I want. Okay.
And the major difference is it doesn't change the size of the overall plant or the components thereof. I just say it changes some of the sizing of those individual components and bases.
But I think I can speak relatively certain for all of us. None of us want to get in the wastewater treatment business. We were just asking that as a question because, just as another option. Because we know where they're the major contributors.
Okay, we've got some other on this list he's got up there, because I was looking at that same list the other day, as penalties and things. And there's other communities around us that have built plants that are cheaper than ours in the last few years that are now having to rebuild their plants because they didn't pass spec. So they built a cheap plant and now they're in trouble with Eagle Grove is on this list. They've had to rebuild something this year or they're getting penalized again.
Okay.
Because they didn't, and their plant's nowhere near the size of ours, I built.
At some point, I think we even had some estimates on if this plant had been built 4 years ago, before COVID, before all the price increases that on everything that we're seeing, it would have been a $35 to $40 million plant. But the reality is we didn't get it done in the time frame that we would have liked to. And now that's what we're facing. So the longer we put it off, the more it's going to cost.
Yeah, inflation, I can't disagree with you there. It's carried things a long way, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And was it 10? That's all right.
I appreciate your time, and we just want you to do the best you can do and be open, be objective to if there's some other ideas. Fair enough? Thank you.
Did you want to come up, Kelly?
Yeah, Kelly Perleska with Marianne Specialty Foods, and just stating so we're all clear and the community is clear, the estimate of the build was basically given to us by one engineering firm, agreed?
Correct.
There's no other competing engineering firms giving us other prices or anything,
It's
correct?
been another $150,000 with each engineering firm.
Yep.
To try and come up with.
Just wanted to state that there's no competing bids with engineering firms.
No.
Thank you.
There will be competing bids for the build.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm Connie Ingraham from Webster City Custom Meats. I'd just like to talk to you a minute about the 4 to 6 years ago. I was very involved at that time in the wastewater planning. We had a roundtable of people from the community that were involved in that. Vero Blue was part of that and part of the problem at the time when we were having to look at a new wastewater plant. The loads were too high. The capacity was not there. The nitrates and stuff coming from the fish plant were going to push us over. I've been to the DNR, okay? They can be worked with. I know they have their items they have to meet. When you talk about taking custom meats off, that's all fine and good, but you need to look at, you're going to reduce your water coming back to the city. When you do that, you're not going to dilute your nitrate and your phosphorus. You're going to be more concentrated. So you need to take a look at that. Okay. Beyond that, $78 million expansion or undertaking by this city to me seems way over the top. We have a building that we run our operation out of that is not brand new. We meet USDA standards. Okay. That doesn't mean we make the rules. We have to comply with them. If they come down and tell us something, we're going to have to get creative and we're going to have to figure it out how we're going to comply. This city needs to get creative. Okay, $78 million out the door in a heartbeat to me is going to take my grandchildren to pay that off. I don't know how long you're planning on this loan to be. Is it 40 years?
30.
30 years. Is that plant going to last 30 years?
It costs, well, the last plant they built, that plant that's there now was rebuilt in 37 years, I think.
I can tell you what our business is running into these days. Anytime we go to do anything, whatever we order for machinery, et cetera, it's at least a 6-month lead time on it. So every part and piece of this wastewater plant is going to be under that same condition.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be delayed. Okay, this isn't going to happen overnight.
Which is part of the reason why we need to not stall for another year.
I understand. But what I don't want to do is to spend us into an indebted forever situation. Okay. we would not do that as a business. And I have not seen the numbers. I want to see the numbers. I want to see what part of $78 million is being spent on the lift station. I want to know what is going where. Where is the proposal? Where's the numbers? If I went into a board meeting and I just told them, hey, you know, we need a new plant, $78 million tomorrow. We need to meet this deadline for the USDA. They're going to want to see all my work. They're going to want to see that. I want to see your
We
work.
had an entire work session on this topic in August.
Yeah.
2 hours or so.
That's fine, but we were not contacted. We were told we would be.
Public.
Like I said, nobody notified us that that was available as two large industrial users. It would have
Right.
been a courtesy to at least let us.
Right. We had asked when we met and Nick Knowles, is that the correct name?
Yeah.
And Beatty, they came out for an introductory meeting, not to talk about wastewater necessarily, but I talked about wastewater to them. And I said, we want to know when you're approaching this. We were told yes, that we would be included. Why? Because we have some information to share. We have some valuable information from history, from what we've been involved in before. I don't believe Daniel was here at that time. I don't know if any of you were on council at that time. You were? Okay. So I'm just saying, I feel like we've gone from a $20 million plant down to the last city manager who told us $6 to $10 million. Then it went back up to 35, 40. Now we're at 78 million. I just would like to know where that's going. Is it going, what piece of the wastewater? How much is being spent and where is it being spent? Is it being spent on underground transfer pipes?
The pipeline to run out to the plant is I think $3 million.
$3 million to get it out there. So from the city, we're going to pipe it across the highway down to the south. We're going to use lift stations, right? How many? One lift station. Do we have a backup lift station?
So.
You believe so? Well, I hope so, because you know what's going to happen
Things built with.
when that
All
fails.
those details are included in the facility plan.
Okay,
We have put out a website with all the information, including the link to the city's facility.
that was shared with me on Saturday
If you
or
want to look at
Friday.
the facility plan, that'll include that detail as well as that cost breakdown that you asked for. It's in the
Okay.
facility plan. You can review that as well. So all this stuff is, like I said, it has to be included into the state for the DNR's review. So the costs and the different treatment systems that were looked at, they're all included in there.
Bill was given that the day it came out.
Okay,
And then in terms of cost, I mean, this is some of the information the council received in August in terms of wastewater treatment plants in the region and within Iowa, as well as just outside of what they're going for. Nevada was probably the most recent one that came online.
Mhm.
You know, their revised estimate was $63 million as of this past summer.
so the data that you're using to build this plant with, is it the old data? Because I'm kind of confused. You know, both Mary Ann's and Custom Meats have been working on this wastewater issue ever since this came up 4 to 6 years ago. We have significantly dropped our water use, which adds up to volume of sewer. Okay, and we have put different chemical people in, et cetera, to try to minimize the number of BOD, suspended solids, oil and grease that's coming back to the city. Is it a perfect situation for us? No, but we have learned through the process, we have to go to the head of the problem. We have to find out what's going into that wastewater system that is increasing those numbers and try to contain it at that point, rather than letting it commingle with all of the wastewater. So I feel like we've done a pretty effective job. I think Mary Ann's probably has too. Am I allowed to speak for you?
Yeah, I did. We
No.
definitely put investments and improved our numbers. So I know the numbers I submitted back in 2020 are probably not appropriate at this point in time, given the investments we've made. Once we knew that, you know, when we originally started talking about what the city was wanting to do, we have since put investments. So our projections would probably be adjusted at this point.
Mhm.
The state maintains a list or a database of all the active wastewater and water projects for that matter. And so this is everything that's tied to just a key term city of. And so every city that has an active wastewater treatment plant project, whether it be a facility plan or other major source, this is everything that's active right now within Iowa. You can see the list is extensive and there's 4 pages of this.
Daniel, I want to point out something you brought up in the meeting the other day, which makes it a little bit, I know that we all are having to deal with this problem and that some of this is coming off of farmland. Some of this entry into our system. And we're basically being held accountable to try to deal with it. I understand that predicament. And I don't want you to feel like we're against you. We understand. It's a matter of, we want to work with you to try to make sure that we're making a really good decision going forward. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Come up, Dean.
My name is Dean Bowden. I used to be president of Webster City Custom Meats. Connie has been for the last 15 years. I know the price of toilet paper is doubled, but I didn't expect that we'd have to double the cost of the plant to do what you're going to do. Everybody's in a big toot right now, getting by with raising prices on everything. You got to admit it. Every grocer in town raised everything by at least $1. They just went from $1.29 on a box of Kleenex to $2.39. Now you tell me where they're getting that kind of increase. These guys, you've got one guy that's been playing around with these figures for 5 years, right?
Well, no.
Well, he should know the system pretty well by now, and he's been charging all the way along. What's he charging you now for percentage fee for this project?
10%.
How much?
He's got a figure coming up there. 15%.
I can't see it from here.
Administration is 15% of the total project.
That's
Yeah, it is just engineering, so it'd be if
Contingency 20%, legal engineering 15%. So that doesn't say what he's charging.
less than 15.
Less than 10?
Less than 15. You just don't know what.
Well, you're saying there's administration, financing. He's only an engineer. You don't have to pay for his paper and all that, do you? You're the administration. Well, I'm not going to argue about that, but it looks high to me. The one thing I am going to bring up, in 1988 to 1992, I sat right in these council seats. And I'll tell you tonight, based on what I'm hearing from out here, they don't want to vote on it. They don't want to see you vote on it. And if I was a council member sitting here tonight, I'll be damned if I'd be voting on it when 2 of them aren't here. That makes each of you 33% responsible for what's going on instead of 20% responsible for what's going on.
On the phone, though.
Oh, he's on the phone.
Yes.
Okay, well, that makes you only 23%. But I don't, if you think the headlines haven't been big in the Webster City paper in the last few weeks, wait till tomorrow morning.
That's good.
Huh?
We need help from anybody we can get it.
You need a bigger crowd in here that
you-
knows that's gonna ask some hard questions. And I haven't asked any yet, and I'm not gonna waste your time tonight because I doubt that you're gonna vote. I'd be displeased if you did.
Well, we are going to vote.
What?
We are going to vote on it tonight.
You have to vote?
We are going to vote on it tonight.
Well, these
We're
people,
voting on, we're not voting on, we're voting on increasing the sewer rates to help start pay for this thing. And if we don't do that, then we're not going to pay for anything.
I think
done an evaluation of the rates in Webster City versus other communities around here.
How would that help us? It doesn't build you a plan.
It does tell you, it's an indicator of other businesses who may want to move to Webster City or not due to higher rates. I mean, you could outcost yourself from getting any other businesses.
The last business that tried to move here couldn't because the sewer, we didn't have enough capacity in our sewer to take them. Which is a whole nother part of why we need to build it, of course, but that's not a very big piece of it, but it is a piece of it.
Well,
I mean, there's nothing good about $78 million, trust me. Do you think I sat up here and said, oh, that's a wonderful figure, we can afford that? I mean, my whole time it's been, how does a person who doesn't like it when we raise the electric rate?
well, the question was asked, and I don't know who gave you the answer. If you took Custom Meats and Mary Ann's out of the equation, I think that's 20% of the load, isn't it?
I don't know, but
Oh, I do. I think it's close to 20% of the load. Is that right, Kelly?
20% of.
Bill, is that right?
The
Well,
plant-
I've heard that number thrown around quite a bit. If you took 20% of the load of 76,000 and you tell me it's gonna reduce your cost by 3,000 to 5,000, I'd be getting a new calculator. That's a bunch of crap. Do you think people believe that? Those engineers, the way they think, they can tell you anything.
Okay.
And this town is not in a position right now, I don't think, based on the building we're getting from the residential, because we're not building any base in this town whatsoever as far as residential taxes, because the industries we lost have hurt. Now, what we're getting out south of town is a great addition. That's gonna help. That's gonna help with a lot of things. But this town, I tell you, you take 75 million divided by, what you got, 3,000 meters, 2,800 meters?
It'll be higher when you guys pull out.
Hmm?
It'll be higher cost for the people in town when you guys pull out.
It would,
Exactly.
and it would really put the city at a lot of risk
It will.
to pay it if we did do
Yeah.
that. It would be an
That's right.
unfortunate thing.
This
for
is, this,
the city.
this is
Go ahead,
Councilman
Logan.
Logan Welch. And again, I apologize, I'm joining through the phone. I did want to be there for this vote. It's extremely important. I want everybody in the audience to know and listening online that this conversation has been going on for 5 years. It has been constantly evolving due to setbacks and people getting in and out, involved, not involved, worried about capacity, not, worried about future capacity. Obviously, COVID gets thrown in there. This has been studied, looked at, and dissected over and over. And I promise you, if you're worried about a headline tomorrow in the paper that we're moving forward on something like this, that could be an impact to the community's monthly budgets on their wastewater, I understand. But I would hate to be in the shoes in 5 or 10 years from now when we can't grow. There's no room for growth if we don't move forward on this. If the request is to look for alternatives, I'm open to that. But like Councilman McKinney said earlier, without the funding, there is no alternative. It's to do nothing. So we have to raise rates just to put us in a position to tackle this issue, whether it's 78 million or 2 million. We still need to create that revenue through the ratepayer.
Anyone else got anything?
Like I said, it's two separate things in my mind. One, if this plant was 30 million, we'd still need the 25%. And that's all we're deciding on at this point. And the 78 million is an engineer's estimate. Nothing's been bid. It could come back at 55. We don't know. I mean, that's their best guess estimate. We've seen some numbers that were way above and way below from engineers. That's what they're estimating. We can come up with another alternative that's less. I think all of us pay sewer rates here. We don't want to pay higher sewer rates either. So we're all open to all alternatives that would cost less money. But not to move forward with a rate increase at this point, I don't think we can afford to do that.
We just had one in August. And we're collecting a surcharge.
And it's not going to pay for the plan if it's $30 million. So where do we go from here? We have to do the plan one way or another, even if it's a waste scaled back plan.
So this is just the start of it. And of course, we've got 12 months before there'll be another piece to this. And if in the next 12 months, we can figure out either one, get it cheaper, or we can get the federal government to send us $30 million, then it won't, the next increase won't have to happen. But if you can get all of your senators and anybody else that can, tell them we're in trouble here, and we are. I mean, that's why it's a serious thing. And you guys, I appreciate you guys coming in and saying what you'd have, because it's true. It's all reality, and it's taken, it's terrible when we sit up here and do our job and we don't hear from anybody, because this thing is serious. And it's been blowing my mind since the figure came out that they haven't had the whole community down here jumping up and down and saying, how can we do this? So.
Will you guys at least make the commitment that you're going to check with Iowa State or Cirrus down there or something? There's got to be other venues besides just going to Bolt Thing.
You can't.
They cooperate. Can you collaborate the two together?
But we can certainly ask questions. That's for sure. I don't know that we can restart that. If we restart the whole process now, then it would put us in huge trouble. But we can definitely ask the question. And if that answer is that we really need to have another look, and we've got time to do that.
I can tell you that Cirrus's efforts for this large scale is in algae for wastewater treatment. And it's still probably in the infancy in terms of their technology and unproven to a large extent. I mean, this was just their grant notice from a year ago.
But they have industrial engineers available.
We've had teams of them come into our plant for different projects, and they'll bring half a dozen young engineering students in from different disciplines. And none of them meet people. There was one meat locker kid who came, his folks owned the locker, and they come with a whole different perspective because they don't see the forest for the trees. They're asking questions that we can walk through the plant and never think about or never ask, because it's something different to them. And that's sometimes where you can take those ideas and hitchhike into something else. So that's what we're asking. Let's just open the doors. Let's be, let's get the peripheral vision as wide as we can and just look and see if there's other options. I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm. But that is another piece to what we're doing tonight, of course. But. Okay, we'll call for motion.
So moved.
Second.
You want to do roll call?
Yeah, let's do roll call.
Logan Welch,
Yes.
John Hawkins,
Yes.
Megan McFarland,
Yes.
Matt McKinney.
Yes.
Okay. So we need to call a motion to pass and adopt the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. But we will be looking further into, like you asked, we will be looking more into it. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Item D is the first reading of an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Webster City, Iowa by amending Chapter 46, Article 10 pertaining to off-road utility vehicles, golf carts within the corporate limits of the City of Webster City, Iowa.
This is just the state legislature changed the rule in June that we can no longer charge permit fee for ORVs. So this is just removing that section of the registration out of the current city code. And we won't be charging, we will still charge for golf carts, but we cannot charge for these.
We'll still have a registration process for them. None of
Not gonna do registration either.
just the.
The county they've ceased doing registrations as well, and
Call for motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Item E is a resolution accepting and approving acquisition of property generally located at 714 Park Avenue, City of Webster City, Iowa, Hamilton County.
This is a former residential home that has since been vacant and abandoned for some time. The structure actually was involved in a fire last year, if I'm not mistaken, or if not during the winter, and has been show you a quick street view of that where it's at. So it's across the street from PMP. This little area on this corner on Park. So we'll add this to the list of several residential properties that needs to be demolished and abated.
This one, that's one of our. You want to buy a house?
Might need some new
repairs. All right, call for motion.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Item F is a resolution authorising the mayor and city clerk to sign and execute an option agreement for purchase of 129 2nd Street East in City of Webster City.
Let me get back to Google Earth. So this was an item that pertained to our current water treatment facility, which is located on White Fox Road and abuts the trail as well as the railroad. Over the years, we're all familiar with the fact that every fall we have to stop softening the plant and in order to do maintenance for the plant. And a large main reason for that is the original plant, when it was built in 1979, it didn't include redundancy for some parts, tanks and other sources like that. And so as we've talked about what future regulations are going to come online, there is no room for capacity for expanding the plant. We're abutted by the railroad on the north, homes on the south, and the Boone River and floodplain on the west, on the east side. And so in a similar manner of where we're at with the wastewater treatment plant is if we ever want to expand or have to modify or build, we can't do it on the existing site. The old car dealership where Carl's used to be before it relocated to the west side of town is currently, the property is up for sale. And we've reached out and negotiated or have developed agreements with the property owner that will allow the city to purchase it after being able to do a due diligence period of 180 days. During that period, we'll evaluate if the site is viable for us to do future expansion. One of the key standards that is going to probably come on in the near future is related to what's known as PFAS, which is compounds and chemicals that don't degrade. At some point, the EPA is currently looking at it, and they will implement standards for treating that. And our current plant is unable to treat for that. That's one of the big drivers, as well as other needs that would be helpful to not have to shut down the plant every fall and have redundancy in place. Some of the components within the plant are also reaching their useful life. And so that'll factor into the due diligence of what can be done. One of the reasons why we have to do lime softening is because we get our drinking water from the Jordan Aquifer. It's a deep water well. And when you're dealing with deep water wells, you run the potential, or DNR requires that you treat or have in place for radium. And that's where the lime softening process comes into place. In treating for PFAS and screening those out or treating for that, there are other methods, some that treat both radium as well as PFAS, but lime softening only treats for radium treatment as well. So this just kind of sets in place the purchase agreements and triggers us to move forward with the due diligence to see if that site is viable.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye. Regulations are gonna pay for this.
What'd you?
You keep throwing more regulations.
Are you still there, Logan?
Hello, Logan.
What was that?
Did you say aye? If you agree.
I said aye.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, G is a discussion on setting a time, a date and time to meet Wilson Brewer Historic Park. To meet with the supervisors.
You had mentioned
So
maybe council meeting by themselves to get your questions or your ideas in place, or if you're just going to set up a time with the supervisors. I think that was kind of the next step you were going towards. So.
But do we need to get together ourselves really to come with our proposal before we meet?
I think we probably need to have we need to discuss what sort of
Framework.
what sort of framework we're looking for, because I think that's what they want. They want something from us
Sure.
to well, they have sent me a thing to say that that's what they'd like to know, what it is we would, what sort of system we're going to look at, whether it's a, and of course the Kendall Young, whether it can be, we don't know for sure. I guess Daniel, you were looking into whether.
Yeah, I did reach out to the outside attorney. You guys retained Doug Herman with Lynch Dallas law firm. And so I've sent him the original wills for Fred Fuller that created the Fuller Trust, as well as Kendall Young from the library. So he's researching and reviewing those, as well as I believe I told him specifically what the legalities of creating a separate board, what that would trigger or require in conjunction with similar to what Kendall Young, I believe, if I understood correctly, the interest was to mirror Kendall Young in the form that Kendall Young is fairly almost entirely self-sufficient, with the exception of utilities. It's still a city-owned property, but the board operates and is financially sustainable on their trust funds entirely.
Did the county ever get an opinion on whether we could have an elected board for?
I have not heard from them on that.
I don't think we've heard yet.
I know that Doug Herman will also look at that, and so I'm not sure if you guys wanted to set a special meeting that the council can discuss this, and I can ask Doug Herman to be available either in person or by Zoom if you wish, that you guys can address him directly, and hopefully by that time he'll have that legal analysis done to be able to guide you.
I'm fine with that.
But like that.
What do you think, Logan? Okay, looks like we'll go forward with that. All right.
Are there dates you want to look at, or just once we?
I
get
think
back from-
How long do you think before you have an opinion back?
I can reach out to him tomorrow morning, see if he's heard back. I would probably say if you guys want to look at something next week, it might be safe.
Yeah, that's fine. Or get too far into
Well,
December.
Yeah, because can we do it after? It just depends on how long our next meeting is. You do something after.
Next week or next meeting?
The next meeting.
The 19th?
Next week I won't be here.
The 19th, so depending on what time you want to start, I don't know that we have too much on the agenda. The last meeting in December usually tends to be pretty light, so I do know, unless you guys would like to change, but we're planning on starting and having the work session at 5:30 to meet with one of the vendors on the speed cameras. If you would like to meet in that same meeting, either before or towards the tail end of that meeting, we can certainly arrange that.
I just wonder if we could do that. That would work.
It's fine by me.
You want to plan on that, 19?
I'll get with him and let him know. Are there any other specific questions that you want me to relay to have him look into, or is it just what I described?
Okay, I think what you got going is good. Okay, call for motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Okay. Hey, very patient tonight, you, very good, man. And you got